roles. Uh, yeah, the advantages of having many multiple roles. One is that we'll have failures, we'll have successes, but when we do have failures in one area, it's kind of balanced by successes in other areas. So I can have a horrible day at work and get shouted at by my manager, but I come home and my child has got an A in school, or my child comes running and says, "I love you, mommy," or whatever. That is one. There's a difficulty in one area, but it's your overall sense of happiness is balanced because of success in another area. And of course, having work means income, and financial freedom is what all of us like. So financial income is a big part. Social support, I mean, I can be having a lousy day at work, but I come home and I talk to my friends, or I've been having a fight with my husband, and then I call up, I mean, I go to work and see my colleagues and I complain about my husband. So that is another, a balance right there. And experiences of success, we are giving us much more options of having experiences of success. We can, different roles that we play. And it's not just, I'm talking about the main four areas of work, family, self, and friends, but there are so many other areas. Even when you take family as a unit, we have, family is not one individual area as such. I mean, you have your relationship with your spouse, you have your relationship with your children, you are a daughter, you are a daughter-in-law, or daughter-in-law, son-in-law, you're a niece or a nephew, you're an aunt or an uncle. So there are so many tiny areas that come in within the bigger, large area of family. And so is for every area. So when there are successes, and when there are multiple options for success, or within self, when we talk about myself, I can be a photographer, I can be a chef, I can be a singer, I can be a dancer. So everything else can be horrible right now, but I'm acting in a play which is getting good success. So that is, you're giving yourself much more opportunity to experience success. And of course, all of this leads to an expanded concept of self. I know that I'm not just a homemaker, or just a wife, or just a mother, or just an employee, or just a photographer, or whatever. It's so much more. All of our personalities are made up of so many different areas, and that is a big balance out there. I mean, you can choose to experience success and thereby improve your self esteem because of the very many areas that we are in. So balance is not just uh, uh is not just, it's not saying I have work, I have family, I have friends. So all of those, so if I have three areas, it has to be 33% of my time, my energy, my money, or whatever it is. Means that every area, every the area of our life, every demand on our time, all the roles that we play have different proportions of takes different proportions of our time, our energy, and it has to be the satisfactions that we get from it, or we should get from it, is also varies. There could be, and it's not stagnant throughout our life. There could be changes throughout the life. So, for example, when you are all of 25 years old, you've started your first job, work can be a big thing. So I know, a lot of young people miss important functions at home, family gatherings, weddings, when they're 25, 26, 27, because you're giving all your time and energy to work. And then maybe when you get married, or when you have a new family, when you have a child, your focus changes. Your child gets priority, and you let your work slide a little bit. Or when your children are having exams, when they are doing their boards, suddenly, a lot of the time and energy is spent in children, and your parents or your friends or your work or other areas can also take a back seat. So it's a ever evolving, ever changing balance. And okay, let me just end the poll. So the poll shows, can you see the poll? Can you see the results?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
we can.
Okay, so yeah, so here most people, 33% have said that experiences of success is what you most get out of the different roles. Yeah, buffering of success and failures is the least, but that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, so the whole concept of work-life balance is that we have to be prepared for it to be ever changing, ever evolving, and we have to go with the flow. It can seem like a lot of balls in the air, but the size of the balls and the time it takes to go around will change with each phase in life, with each new year. As we get into a new year, 2025 could all be very different. So we have to be prepared for it to evolve as we go on. So how do we know whether our life is balanced? All these balls are up in the air, and how do you know whether it's okay, or whether am I fumbling? Are the balls dropping all over, or are they remaining up? Depending on how happy you are, and that happiness, how content you are, how stable you're feeling. So if it is balanced, you have better health. And as you know, a lot of research now is now showing that your state of health is dependent on your stress levels a lot. It is dependent on your mood a lot. So it is dependent greatly on all the kind of hormones that are floating around in you. And if you're balanced, if you're less stressed, if you're able to cope with all the different challenges, if you're able to keep the balance going, it means that you have better health. It means you have stronger relationships. And I'm not saying conflicts with your parents, with your spouse, with your siblings, whoever, they are indicative of a big problem. All of us have conflicts. But if you're able to resolve those conflicts fast, if those conflicts don't affect your bigger relationship, if you're able to get through issues with minimal emotional damage, then I would say it's a strong relationship. Productivity. Again, our productivity is also greatly dependent on our stress levels, on our emotions, on whether we are able to concentrate, whether we remember stuff. So all of it is very interlinked. And if you are in balance and you're not as stressed and your stress hormones are under control, then your productivity will be high. And the sense of fulfillment, the happiness that you get, where the different areas in your life. And let me tell you, all areas are not going to be up at a high constantly. Like I said, it'll go up and down. It's ever evolving, ever changing. However, even if through the highs and the lows, if you're able to be happy, if you're able to have a sense of fulfillment, then that means it's okay. And the extreme at the other side is that you'll have health issues, you have conflicts which affect your peace, conflicts which take a long time to resolve, conflicts which have lasting impact on your relationships, be it with your spouse, be it with your parents, be it with your children, be it with your siblings, be it with your friends. Performance is affected. And again, the other side of fulfillment, the opposite of fulfillment is exhaustion, irritability, depression, anxiety. All of that is on the rise. So that shows that there's some imbalance somewhere. Are you with me so far? Can everybody hear me? Because I cannot see any faces. Am I making sense? Is everybody
Yes.
fast asleep?
Yep.
Am I making sense? Please unmute yourself and ask me questions, or you can type the questions in the chat box. I will read out the questions. But if you have any clarifications to make, if you have anything to add to what I'm saying, because all of us are doing this juggling act, and if you find that there's something that you do which makes your life easier, please let us know so that all of us can learn from it. So when roles are juggled, like we said, like we looked at it earlier initially, when roles are, when there are multiple roles, there are advantages. But the other side is the whole fact that when you're juggling the roles, there are, lots of things that can go wrong also. Conflict is when there are multiple roles have the same demands on our time and energy. For example, if my child's PTA meeting is at the same time and I have an important meeting, and I can't miss my child's PTA meeting, neither can I, miss an important meeting. Or it can be that it's my partner's birthday, or our wedding anniversary, or an important day for my family, but there's no way I can take it off from my work. Or, it can be anything where we have limited resources. Time is an easy resource to give example about, but it's not only time. It can be our energy. It can be any of the resources that we have are anything. And when we have limited resources, I mean, time, again, we have 24 hours in a day, and when there are multiple demands for the same chunk of time, then it can get very, very difficult, and you don't know what to do. You can't give up anyone, and it's not easy trying to put one aside and give more importance to another, because at that point both are equally important. So that is a conflict. That's a conflict that I'm sure all of us face several times a day. So that is something that happens. Accommodation is when uh, accommodation is when we consciously not. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little confused between accommodation and compensation. One of it is accommodation is when we have multiple demands on a time, and we say one is more important than the other, but the other suffers. For example, if the example that I have is if somebody is focusing a lot on work at the cost of family, which is wife and child. This is a case that we have, and an example that we have, a client who came to us with this problem. And he was putting in all his time, energy on work, but his work was suffering. He was not doing it well at work. He was put on PIP. There was a massive downsizing happening, and he didn't know whether he was going to lose his work or not. And because of that, and when he turned to his family for support, his family was detached because he hadn't invested time in the family to for the family to be able to be supportive. So he accommodated the needs of one at the cost of the other, and finally he was at risk of losing both. And that can come, but compensation is when one is struggling, when you are feeling that your work is really suffering, but your family life is going well, or your friends, when your work is really struggling and you don't know how you're managing, and every day seems like a struggle, and there's a long weekend, and you go for a trip to go out with your friends, and you feel that you get a lot of satisfaction from that one thing. It's not necessarily solving the problems in the work area, but you're getting a sense of satisfaction and happiness, and you're able to relax because of the other area. It can go either ways. When family is in trouble, and you are I had a client who was heading towards divorce, and his life was horrible, and he hated going back home because there would be constant fights, constant conflict with his wife. And he said those 2 years when he was married, and he hadn't yet made up his mind whether to divorce or not, but he hated going back home. He spent a lot of time at work, and his work was actually giving him, he got a lot of promotions. He was doing very well at work. He was recommended for some award. So that work was compensating for his difficulties at his in his family. So again, many areas in our life, one can have difficulties, but the others can compensate. Segmentation is when you consciously keep the segments different, where you say that you're not going to you're not going to think about family at home, at family at work. You're not going to think about your work at family, and you're able to draw a very clear line through the different areas, so that they're not overlapping. One is not encroaching on the other. That's not an easy thing to do, but it can be done. And enrichment is what we all hope for. Enrichment is where success in one area enriches another area. In fact, we had a client like this where who was to start off with, he came to work, he came for counseling with a lot of difficulties in his marriage. He felt he was not being valued at work. His wife and child was not giving him any time, any effort. They seemed to be very content in their life, and he felt it like an outsider at the family. And he felt very undervalued at work also. He felt he was not doing a good job. And then he started by looking for other jobs, and he managed to get a much higher paying job where he was very good. He was very comfortable in that role, and he felt valued at the workplace, which increased his confidence, and that impacted his behavior at home. And he suddenly was much more assertive at home. He was initiating family activities, he was initiating conversations, and his family life slowly improved too. So this is where your sense of satisfaction, your sense of comfort at who you are improves because of success in another area, and that positive spillover happens from area to area to area, and you just become happier. That negative spillover can also happen, but in this case, enrichment is a positive spillover. Can I pause here and ask if there are any questions? How's everybody feeling? Are you with me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Because I cannot see any faces. I feel very worried that all of you have slept off and I have no idea. So let's look at how satisfied we are. I have a poll uh, for this slide also, but before we get into the poll, let's remember go a little back about what I said about one size doesn't fit all. All of us are different individuals, different personalities, different life stages, and the balance is not going to be constant there. It's not going to be constant from same from person to person, and within one person, it's not going to be constant in all areas of our lives. It is going to keep changing. It is evolving, and we have to evolve with it. But what the satisfaction different areas give are going to be different. And like we discussed, it has to be equitable rather than equal. We cannot say that work, family, friends, self, there are four areas. I have to get 25% satisfaction from both, which makes it 100%. It doesn't work like that. Like I said, in different stages, different areas take priority. There could be times in our lives where work is more important. There could be times as we grow older, when we look at the track of sibling relationships, when siblings are younger and in school or college or whatever, you remain close, and that closeness stays till both of them start working, both of them get married, and then that graph deviates. And interestingly, it is noticed that that graph deviates for most of the 30s, assuming both the partners are working and have rearing their own family. 30s to mid 40s, those siblings relationships take a divergent course. But somewhere in mid 40s, usually it starts. I mean, this age is very, it's what the research was done on, but it can vary from couple to couple, people to people, family to family. But usually when mid 40s, early 50s, where parents' health starts going down, is usually when the siblings start becoming close again. There are more phone calls because parents' needs come up, and the siblings reconnect. And it shows that from that time, the siblings, the paths are more in sync. Taking caregiving for parents leads to deeper connection. And also, once the children are grown up and leave homes, they stop taking so much time and energy from us, and siblings become close again. And towards the end of life, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, sibling relationships are at the closest. They are as close as they initially were in 0 to 10. So like I said, that is just one relationship, but different areas, different relationships, different parts of our personalities um, change and have differing needs as time goes by. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Life tides, it is never constant. It keeps going back and forth and back and forth, and we have to be prepared for it to be going back and forth. So this is a resource. Let me share. Okay, so this is like a rating scale. So if you were in person with me and this is an in-person session, I would have given you a handout which had the graph on it. But since we can't do that, I tried replicating that on the online. I want you to mark for each area. This is a scale of 1 to 10. How much satisfaction does each area give? Starting with work, family, friends, and how much satisfaction do you get from yourself? Can you see the poll? Yeah, you can see people beginning to mark, which is great. So what that means is, again, this is at this moment. It may not be the same tomorrow. It'll definitely be not the same next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. But how much satisfaction is work giving you? Again, when we talk about satisfaction from work, well, it's not a constant thing. There are lots of things that can give satisfaction at work. It's your performance, it's your colleagues, it's your interaction with them, the friendship that you have with them. It is how challenging the work is, how well you get along with your boss. And each area like that has various aspects to it. Your family is not just your spouse or your children. It could be your parents, it could be your siblings, it could be extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nieces. but we're going to look at it overall. And of course, self is again different aspects. Some days I'm very happy with myself. I like, for example, I like taking wildlife photographs. And and that happens so very rarely, but if I can go on a safari, my happiness with myself is, 10 on 10. But I don't go on a safari every day of my life. Some days there are my cameras gather dust and, it's just sitting in one corner, and so satisfaction as a photographer will be zero. But then my satisfaction as a I don't know, chef would be higher. So it's like in so many aspects make who you are, and yourself is a lot of, your confidence, your hobbies, your ability to relate to others, your ability to take care of people who need you. It's comprised of so very many things, and there are some days that you feel good about yourself, some days you don't, and that is perfectly fine. I'm looking at how many people responded. 10 out of the 13 people responded. Let me just give it another 10 seconds for people to respond. Okay. So, I mean, different people have given, some have given anything which is, I think 6, 7, 8 is the best we can hope for on a average day. 9 and 10 is exceptional. And if you feel you've got 9 and 10, that is brilliant. 6, 7, 8 is extremely good. But 0, 1, 2, 3 is also possible. And I can see a couple of zeros, couple of ones, twos in different areas, and that might be something that you need to work on, and that might be something that you need to figure out why is it a 1 or a 2 or a 3, because 6, 7, 8 is ideal. 9 and 10, I mean, it should be ideally 10 for every area, but it's never going to be a 10 for every area. Let's face that fact. But if we can make it 7, 8 for most areas, that is very good. Okay. And here again, I'm going to ask you to use the chat facility. If you type in your responses directly to me, if you in your chat drop box, you can take Counselor RW, and you can directly type in what I want you to write, what some of the most challenging thing that you are facing right now, one for each of the category. Except the person who gave 10 for any, I mean, if you've given 10 for any, then you don't have to, I mean, it does means that it's not challenging. So you don't have to give me the answers. And if you give it, I mean, send it to me. I will read it out without mentioning names, so the confidentiality will be maintained. Is that okay? Just some of the challenges, and don't go into any great details, just one liner, like how you would do. I mean, if this was an in-person session, I would be passing around post-its and I would ask you to write one sentence on a post-it. So send me those post-its by chats. Anyone? Wanting to do everything but not enough time. I presume that is for all areas. It's a common concern throughout everything: work, family, self. Yes, there's a lot that can be done, but not enough time. Being the most inexperienced and youngest among colleagues. That is that I'm assuming that is work for you. Yeah, that is work for you. Yeah. Yeah. Work that can get very challenging if you are inexperienced. And experience, though, is something that you can get with time. It's just time. Being youngest, I'm sure people will hire more younger people as time goes on. So I think time will work for you, the person who said that. Somebody's written, work has become boring and repetitive. Yes, when you're doing the same things over and over and over again, it can get challenging. Challenge with self to motivate myself to be positive. It triggers me sometimes been through a lot. Yeah, so yes, motivation is something that we all of us struggle from time to time, but sometimes when we feel that it's in a slum and we can't get out of it, that person's gone on to say, how do I keep that motivation on to be happy with self? Yes, it is difficult, So that being low is normal. It's part of everybody's cycle. But if you feel that that low is something that you're finding struggling, especially hard to get out of, and you just can't seem to get motivated, I think that's talking to a counselor about it is a good thing that you can do. It can help you figure out why you are in that low and how you can, get out of it. Juggling between work and family and friends, I don't know how to focus on self. Yes, sometimes when the demands of other areas, and we tend to push ourselves to the corner most of the time. It's so difficult to focus. We think that if we can take care of our family, our friends, our parents, we do all of that, and we ignore ourselves. Work, I'm not able to grow as experience is increasing, not self motivating. Yeah. Yeah, that is also a difficulty where you feel that you're stagnant, you're not able to grow. Friends, harder to find time with friends as they have their own lives. Another person's written, very few true friends in the social networking world. Old days of old friends are far away nowadays. Yeah, both true. I mean, it's difficult to find good true friends, and it's difficult to find time with friends as they move on with their lives. Yeah, so all of these are good points, and the reason I asked you to put them down is I want everybody to realize that everybody else. So there are 14 people minus me, that is 13 people in this group listening to me, and I want you to realize that all of you are struggling. So when you're struggling, your specific post-it which on that work or family or friends or self might be different from another person, but everybody is struggling with something or the other. All of us are finding it difficult to balance. So how do we balance? Let's look at some strategies which can help us balance. And for some things you might need specific attention. You might need to work on it with a counselor, especially for the person who told me that they're in a slum and they're not able to get out of that slump they're in. However, let's look at some broader strategies. These strategies are just broad strategies which can help in work life balance. You might be able to modify that, change that, do a version of it so that it helps your particular situation. However, if you find nothing here that helps you, please reach out to us and talk to a counselor, because a counselor can look at your specific situation and help you figure it out. Another person's written, self pure time for myself is not at all there. Yes, and that happens as you have children, and as you have demands on your time, and there's so much, there's 24 hours, and there's so much of things that you have to accomplish in those 24 hours. That time you put aside for yourself, where you do something that makes you happy, that you become a better photographer, better chef, better dancer, better singer, whatever your particular hobby is and interest is and passion is. That can be very difficult to figure out. Okay, looking at strategies, the first thing is to prioritize. I think it's just so important and not at all practical when thinking that you have to do everything and you should do everything and everything has to be done perfectly is not at all practical. And it's just so important that you figure out what is very important, very urgently, that needs to be done, be it in your work, be it your family, be it different areas where you're trying to juggle different areas, or within a particular area you're trying to juggle yourself. What is most important? And sometimes it takes a lot of time. In order to say yes to your priorities, you have to be willing to say no to something else. Sometimes, and I can give you an example of this last weekend where I had to prioritize. I had tickets for the Brian Adams concert, which is happening in Bangalore. And I had friends who were coming in from my hometown, old friends, who were coming and staying with us, and we were all planning to go for the concert together and have a lot of fun. But last week, mid of last week, an uncle took seriously ill, and he passed away towards the end of the week. And I went, so initially I made plans. I thought I can do both. I went and I was with my family, with my cousin I'm very close to, and we grew up together as children, and we've kept in touch. It's one of the very few, very few childhood cousins that have remained constantly close throughout the years. There have been times when we haven't spoken, but we've remained close whenever we've reached out to each other. And I went and I spent time with her, and I thought I can come back Saturday morning so that Saturday night I can go for the concert. But when I reached there on Friday, I realized that the family was in such a bad shape. And I was actually able to help out. I was able to take a lot of decisions for them about the funeral, and I was able to do a lot of the running around because the family was broken. And there was lots of politics there. And somewhere along the way on Friday night, I took the call that I'm not coming back on Saturday. I prioritized being there for my art, being there for my cousin over the fun that I could have had with my friends at the concert. So that is something that I realized it was not easy for me to do. And one side I was feeling very guilty because my friends were coming to spend time with me. They were coming to Bangalore to stay with me, and we were all supposed to go together. And then suddenly I was very worried about how are they going to manage, who's going to give them food. So my husband was here. They swiggied it a lot, and everybody was happy. Everybody understood that I was staying back for a funeral, and it was not other choice. But there's a lot of guilt also. So when you prioritize, it doesn't mean that it's going to be guilt free, but sometimes you have to say no to something and be willing to put in time and effort into something else when there is a conflict. So again, like I said, time is something that we can easily give examples for, but it's not just time, it's your energy, it is your happiness levels, it is just making choices between different things that require you to be present in some form or the other, your energy. So so look at situations where you are. Look at what is most important right now. If you have young children, automatically you prioritize them. But somewhere along the way you have to question, and you have to see, is there somewhere I can spend some time on myself? Or are you deferring that to a time when your children are more grown up? Because that is not practical. For you to be healthy, happy, you do need to spend some time on yourself, on your passions. So where can you make that time? Is there something else you can say no to? You have to say, this is a hard rule that I will not stop. For example, another hard rule that I have, which I say it's a hard rule, but it hasn't been done in a couple of weeks, is that I have a small dog. So every Saturday morning, Kaban Park, it's a dog park, and I insist. My husband is not very keen. He rather sleeps Saturday mornings, but I insist that we go as a family to Kaban Park, and my dog can walk, and all of us can get and breathe in some green air, and get in some trees and sunlight, and just relax. I love it when we do, but sometimes it's so difficult to wake up early on a Saturday morning to do that. When you've had a long week, when your Friday night has been late. So sometimes you have to make choices. Sometimes it means less sleep. But another time you can prioritize sleep. Sleep is one of the things that we should prioritize and make sure that I'm getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. So the priorities keep changing from situation to situation, from phase in life to phase in life. But an important part of prioritizing is our ability to say no to someone else, something else, another situation, something that can give us great happiness in the moment, but maybe not be good for us in the long term. So look at what you can change in your life, because you look at the bigger picture and you look at what is important, and what do you need to invest time on, what do you need to invest energy on right now. And that brings us to managing time. Again, not easy. There are different concepts of time. Contracted time is your time that you've been contracted. For example, for your work, you've contracted that you're going to work 8 hours a day, and it includes commute time. If you're not working from home, if you're traveling, so it is 8 hours plus 1 hour commute, 1 hour, half an hour commute, whatever it is, and that is your contracted time. That is non-negotiable time. When the contracted time, you have to do something. Committed time is the time you've committed to your family or your friends, where you've said, I'll meet everybody for dinner on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. So that 2 hours or 3 hours at 7 p.m. is your committed time. Or where you've said that every evening you've decided that you are going to spend time with your spouse or your child or your parent every evening for an hour. I come home and I sit and I chat with them. And that is your committed time. Your necessary time is the time it takes for you to take care of yourself. Your morning bath, your brushing your teeth, your food that you take. I mean, the time that it takes for you to eat your meals. All of that is a necessary time, which again, it has to happen. It has to happen. And discretionary time is what you have left. It is a time where you think, should I watch TV now, and or should I scroll through my phone and look at 20 reels, or should I go for a walk, should I go for a run, should I play a game with my child? The time that you have after your contracted, committed, and necessary time, where you have a little bit of time to decide where you need to spend it. So be conscious of all these times. Look at your discrete time. I'll tell you one of the biggest things. If you haven't already started doing it, if you want to save a lot of time, there is one thing you can do. Limit your social media time. Social media has grown to increase so much, use so much of our time. I sometimes start thinking, oh, I will just look at Instagram for 2 minutes. And I realize half an hour later on that it's, 2 minutes is long gone. I remember there's this one distinct occasion when I turned my heater on, the geyser in the bathroom on. And I thought, while I'm waiting for the geyser to become hot, let me look at Instagram. And then when I looked up, it was 2 hours. 2 hours. I was waiting for the geyser to be on. I mean, I know some people are, more and more people are consciously restricting their time. A lot of people have uninstalled these apps. I'm not saying you should uninstall these time apps. These are good ways to keep in touch with your friends, your family. You know what, people who you're not even talking to very much, but you like them, your school friend, your cousin, who are in your life, and you see that, oh, they've gone to Paris for a holiday, how nice. Or somebody has had a baby, and how nice. And it's a good time to, you're not directly in connection, but you see what they're up to in their lives, and that is fine. And I personally feel that it's a good way to keep in touch with people. And I especially use it when I travel, and I realize that somebody I didn't even know through other means, but somebody I know is in the city that I'm traveling to, and then I make an effort to catch up with them or have coffee with them or something. So I mean, it is perfectly fine if you are using it for that. But if you are seeing reels on and on and on and on, that is time wasted. And I think a lot of people are wasting a lot of time that way. So look at how you're spending your discretionary time. If you're not one of the people who consciously took an effort to stop scrolling, I suggest that you do that. Maybe that can be a resolution for 2025. And then you will see how much time there is. I've done it for bits and periods of times. I mean, I have to, one of my resolutions for 2025 is to completely stop scrolling. But there have been phases when I have managed to stop scrolling. And then there are days at evenings and at 8 o'clock, I'm thinking, okay, what do I do with my time? Where suddenly there's time and I don't know what to do with it. So that's a good way to be. So maybe that is something that you can do, but discretionary time is up to you to figure out how you want to spend it. So spend it wisely. Think about it. Establish boundaries between work and home, between friends and home, between different areas of your work, different areas of different relationships that you have in your family. Where, sometimes I uh, don't answer calls after 6 p.m. If somebody is dying, it is very important, they will message me. I mean, I don't know whether your role lets you do that, but do that. Or, the next 2 hours, I'm going for a walk with my dog. I don't want to be disturbed. I'm going to turn my phone off. Or, I've had a horrible day at work, but I am aware that I've had a horrible day at work, and I'm taking a conscious decision not to take it out on my children. Like my body wants to. What I really want to do is to scream at my child when he makes noise. But I'm taking a conscious decision to speak to him calmly. Unplug. Again, what I said about the mobiles, about scrolling. If there is an aspect that is taking up a lot of your time and energy without you intending to spend on it, make an effort. Stop it intentionally. If you leave it up to yourself, if it leave it up to our the way it flows, we will not do it. We have to be intentional about it. Recognize the resources. All of us have a lot of resources. All of us have a lot of Oh, I'm sorry. I just got distracted reading a chat message, and I think I will read it out because it's a very nice message. I am proud to say I don't watch any reels. Life is so much at peace with not having an account on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. My dad watches more screen time. I try to focus on books and good content on self learning to improve myself. I am so proud of you for saying that, and thank you for opening up. And you are an inspiration, sir, to everybody. And I hope the other people listening to this also gets inspired by the person who wrote this. So that is excellent, and that is what I want for myself. And let me tell you, I'm not there. Today morning I spent half an hour in bed because I was scrolling. I could have gotten up half an hour earlier and had a quick workout, but I said, oh no, anyway, I don't have time, so let me not work out, and I use that time to scroll. So I'm not proud of myself. I'm sitting here most ashamed in front of you, but I hope in 2025 I will be better. Recognize your resources. All of us have very, very, very many resources at our fingertips that we are not recognizing. And what might there be? At work, there could be colleagues, there could be, and the person who wrote saying that you're feeling very inexperienced and youngest at the work, and you feel that is a disadvantage. Maybe not, because you have all these people with better experience than you. All of them have more experience and can teach you stuff. So maybe that is an opportunity for you to learn, because it seems like everybody around you have something to teach you. So look at different ways that you can get help at work. I mean, this is for everybody. Look at different ways that you can get help at work. What are the things, who are the people who are willing to help you out? What are the technologies that you can use to at your advantages? Family and friends. I think as a culture we have gotten into the habit of saying we are self-reliant and I will not depend on other people. Till a generation ago, people had no qualms in asking for help. People, you didn't have sugar, you went to your neighbor's house and you got a cup of sugar. I remember that when I was young, my grandfather had a heart attack and my mother had to go. And I didn't, my father was traveling, I think. My mother and I were at home alone, and my mother had to go, and she immediately called one of my school friends' mothers and spoke to her and dropped me off at my friend's house. And I stayed there for a week while my mother was in the hospital with my grandfather. And I don't know how many of us have that kind of relationships anymore. We don't borrow sugar from our neighbors anymore, because now it's all Swiggy, Instamart, and Zepto and whatever, and it's everything. You run out of sugar, you can order sugar in 5 minutes. However, by not borrowing sugar from our neighbors, we've lost out on interacting with our neighbors. Because we don't take a cup of sugar from them, they don't feel comfortable in asking us for anything. And I think when neighbors and friends were more comfortable with each other, when you could ask each other for things, ask each other for resources. And I think we need to intentionally go back into that culture where we are asking for help. Help is there. There are people all around. We don't have to be so self-dependent and self-reliant. Everybody is struggling to stay afloat in this thing called life. Nobody is doing it very well. Everybody has areas in their life which are failing a lot. And everybody is experiencing successes in one area while, other areas are struggling. So there's no harm, there's no damage done in asking for help. And you will probably realize that if you ask for help, other people will be more comfortable in asking you for help. So it goes back and forth. Show your vulnerability. So one of the things that I did, I remember I started driving and I was very worried about being on the road. And my husband had at that point had a job that was transferable, and I mean, not transferable, he was a lot of travel involved, and he wouldn't be at home for half a month. And one of my biggest fears was that I will hit somebody or something, or I will get stuck in the middle of the road and there will be one big pile up of cars behind me all honking, and I wouldn't know how to move the car and I'll be stuck, or I wouldn't be able to move it. And that would happen. My fear was that would happen when he's not in town, so I can't even call him for help. What will I do? So what my husband did was to put one of his friends who didn't have a traveling job and who I knew pretty well. He put his friend's number as an SOS number on my phone, and he said, and he told his friends that Rebecca will call you if she needs anything, any trouble with car trouble. I never had to call him, but the fact that I had his number saved as some SOS car or something on my phone I still have it like that. Now it's been many years, but I still have his phone number saved like that. And the fact that I've never had to call is immaterial. The fact that I had the number saved and I knew that there's somebody I could call eased my mind a lot. So use your resources. Think about what resources you might have, and look at what you might have within yourself. And sometimes we tend to underestimate our abilities a lot. We underestimate our capacity to multitask a lot. Look at what within you, what can you do to be at more in balance with yourself. Look at what resources that you have. Are you good at making lists? Are you good at calming down in a tense situation? Are you good at arranging resources? The last weekend when I was at my aunt's and I was helping arrange funeral, I realized that I was very good at calling people and saying, I need to get this done. I was calling different people and saying, where can I get this done? Where can I buy a coffin from? And, what do I need to do for this? Where can I get a meal catered for 30 people? And, I was very good at getting all the things done, the resources when my aunt needed help with the funeral. So look at what your strengths are. And of course, there are paid resources. If your house is in a mess and you cannot find time to clean it up, don't. Call Urban Clap. Urban Clap, what is that called? Urban Company. Urban Company has people who will come and clean your bathrooms, clean your houses, deep clean everything. They have people who will come and give you massages. And no, I'm not working for Urban Company. I'm not trying to sell their resources, but there are many services like that. What you can use to get stuff done. I think that's one of the biggest advantages of living in India, that we have people to do all kinds of things. Is there a IKEA bookshelf that you bought that you've been meaning to put together for years and you haven't done? Get somebody to do it. Get a carpenter to do it. In India, we have the luxury of being able to say that. So use it. Get a carpenter, get a plumber, get somebody to come and deep clean your bathrooms. Get somebody to come home and give you a massage. Do whatever it needs to make your life easier. The person who wrote about the fact that that person doesn't watch any TV anymore has written saying there's a nice saying which means books means focus, phones means distraction. I agree. I mean, phones have their uses. You can contact family. You can, do a lot of things on the phone. There are apps that you can use to better yourself, relax, apps that can help you sleep. I mean, use your phone wisely. I'm not saying don't use your phone at all. Technology can be used to serve you. Use technology to serve you. Don't serve technology, if you know what I mean. And books improve focus. Yes, read. Make that a 2025 resolution. I will read 50 pages every day. Be it a newspaper, be it a magazine, be it a book, it doesn't matter. Read whatever it is. Share the load. Delegate. You don't have to do everything by yourself, even at work, even at home, delegate. If you have children, no matter what the age is, delegate. Even 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds can help you with tasks. They can help you carry things back and forth. Teach them chores. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds should be helping you with your tasks. You should not be doing everything by yourself. Children is a lot of free unpaid labor. Use that. And you are prepping them up. You're not using them for unpaid labor. You're prepping them up for the life ahead. You're teaching them how to be self-sufficient. See it that way. But teach them tasks. Let them help you run your house. Let them help you cook. Let them help you clean up, load the dishwasher, wash the dishes, put in laundry, fold clothes. All the things that take your time, use your kids. But that is at home. At work, also learn to delegate. A lot of us do a lot of things ourselves because we like it done a particular way. We don't want to delegate because if we delegate, they will do it their own way. Not a good enough reason. Delegate, but let them do it their way. Make it easier for you, but give them autonomy to do things their way. Identify people in your lives. Like my husband identified his friend who can help me if I have car trouble. Identify different people who can provide services. Prepare for emergencies if you need to go out of town. If your parents are ill, if your parents are older, what will you do if they need an emergency? What will your kids do? What if your car breaks down? Who will you call? A lot of stress goes away if you know that you have backup plans. So create backup plans. I'm not saying always assume things will go wrong. Do not do that. That is a very difficult way to live. However, take a little bit of time and then assume things. If things do go wrong, what will you do about it? Who are the people who can help you in different situations? Identify them. Maybe you will never need to use them, but it's good to have people you can immediately contact to if things don't go the way you want them to. At work, especially train people to take over. Not to do your job, but train people to do the things you want them to. Empower people to do things that will help their career and help you in your career. Trust them. Do not micromanage. It's very difficult to not micromanage, but micromanaging is going to make you miserable, going to make them miserable. Be creative. What works for somebody else doesn't need to work for you. Figure out what works for you. Again, I've given you a lot of ideas, but it doesn't mean that none of those will be practical in your situation. What you need to do is to figure out how you can modify everything that I've said to make it work in your situation. What can you do? If dinner dates don't work, plan breakfast dates. In fact, right now, that is my favorite way to meet people because I mean, I'm going through stuff and little health issues, and I cannot do late nights anymore. So when I meet my friends, if I meet them at 8 o'clock and it goes on to 10 o'clock, I'm dead by 10 o'clock. I want to be in bed by 9 o'clock. So I realized that what works for me, and I realized that what works for a lot of my friends at my age is to meet for breakfast. 8 o'clock, everybody is happy. You're done by 10 o'clock. You have the whole day ahead of you. You're not tired. So it doesn't matter. Figure out solutions that work for you. Experiment. I think life is constantly experimenting. We are trying to see if this fits us, this doesn't fit us, what else fits us, what else can we do? These are my passions. I need to find out a passion. I try playing a guitar, it sucked. I try doing something else. Try different things and figure out what makes you happy. The same thing about work, same thing about your family. Look at different ways you can spend time with your family. Going for walks on Saturday morning is something that I'm convinced will work for my family, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it is playing board games in the evening. Maybe it is going to a park. Maybe it is, I don't know, you experiment with different things. Maybe it's working out together. Use technology, like I said. Technology, I mean, there's so much you can use. Make technology can make your lives easier. Be it apps that you on your phone, which will help you relax, help you calm down when you're anxious, helps you sleep. Journals that you can use to keep notes. I mean, I don't know anything. I'm very tech unsavvy, but use technology. Look at apps. Read up articles. Look at how whatever you're struggling through. Is there any way that technology can help you? And don't worry about others. People will maybe find your creative solution that works for you ridiculous. That's okay. It's it's your life. You decide how to live it. Do not be so worried about what other people think so that you don't experiment with yourself. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, pause here for a minute, and ask you to do another poll. Which of the strategies that I've mentioned so far, what do you think you can do now? Can you see the poll? Because we have only another 2 minutes on left, I'm just gonna move on to the next slide. Yeah, which is another thing, which start small, build them into your routine. The new year is always a good time to start. You think you every new year we wake up thinking, I am going to make changes. I am going to change my life. Well, if you make big changes, it's not going to last. So start small. Start build them into your routine. See what small changes you can make, which are easily doable, which you can make into a habit. Okay, so these are what people want to do a lot. I'm going to stop share.